This quote is really something here. Quote, "We don't deserve the trust of the nation if we're unclear about the divisiveness of swastikas," the official said, speaking on the condition of anonymity because of fear of reprisal. This person fears retribution from the Donald Trump administration if he says, yeah, swastikas are bad. Jesse, you can't call people racist. It loses its meaning when you call people racist who aren't racist. You're being exaggerative when you say that the Republican Party is the largest white supremacist organization on the planet. Stop being an exaggerator. All you're trying to do is gin up clicks, right? That's what I hear all the time about the Trump administration. Donald Trump's not a racist. Not everybody you don't like is a racist. And then we find out a since retracted policy. It only took hours after the Washington Post broke this story that the U.S. Coast Guard will no longer classify swastikas, nooses as hate symbols. The military service, which falls under Kristi Noem's Department of Homeland Security, has drafted a new policy that classifies such items as potentially divisive. This is a policy engineered for Nazis, for neo-Nazis, for white nationalists, for white supremacists generally. Because the only person who would be offended at the banning of a swastika is a fucking Nazi. The only person who thinks that it is okay to display a noose, the symbol of violence against black people in this country for centuries, is a white supremacist, is someone who wants to intimidate a fellow guardsman or whatever the Coast Guard are called. By the way, you will note that this isn't even trying to be put forward as a policy inside of Pete Hegseth's Department of Defense. This is the Homeland Security Department, the same department that is the umbrella organization that is over ICE, where the masked secret police Nazi Gestapo are kidnapping people off the streets of the United States without due process, refusing to identify themselves, using someone's ethnicity, the way they look, or the language they're speaking, or the accent they speak English with as a precursor to detainment and arrest. Yeah, but that's not racism. It's not white supremacy, Jesse. Please. Let's start with the retraction. This is again the Washington Post. In reversal, Coast Guard again classifies swastikas, nooses as hate symbols. The new order came hours after the Post reported the service would instead classify such symbols as potentially divisive under guidelines set for release next month. This was such a sensitive issue yesterday that when asked about it, I played this in my previous topic, that when asked about it, Caroline Leavitt got aggressive to get away from the question. Like, I'm talking to Bloomberg. I'm not asking you the question. Watch this.
And go ahead. As a follow-up, yes. The Washington Post just reported that the Coast Guard has...
I'm calling on Bloomberg. Go ahead.
Caroline, thank you. Two questions for you. The New York Times is reporting...
And this is the story that she was so keen on not addressing. Again, the headline from the Washington Post, U.S. Coast Guard will no longer classify swastikas, nooses as hate symbols. The U.S. Coast Guard will no longer classify the swastika, an emblem of fascism and white supremacy inextricably linked to the murder of millions of Jews and the deaths of more than 400,000 U.S. troops who died fighting in World War II, as a hate symbol, according to a new policy that takes effect next month. Instead, the Coast Guard will classify the Nazi area insignia as potentially divisive under its new guidelines. The policy, set to take effect December 15th, similarly downgrades the classification of nooses and the Confederate flag, the flag of traitors to the Republic, the flag of people who took up arms against their country. Traitors. No, it's not hate, it's heritage. Yeah. Morons, traitors. Still, if you have loyalty to the Confederacy, you're a traitor to this republic. You are a traitor to the United States of America. You are a traitor to humanity for supporting a movement, an organization, a military movement that killed Americans in order to secure the ownership of human beings under law. Sickening. Again here, similarly downgrades the classification of nooses and the Confederate flag, though display of the latter remains banned according to documents reviewed by the Washington Post. Certain historical displays or artwork where the Confederate flag is a minor element are still permissible according to the policy. You see, although the Coast Guard is considered the military, before 9/11, it was a part of the Department of Transportation. So there isn't the military history and background and culture that has been developed over the course of 250 years because they were Department of Transportation. Now they are the military, although they are run under the Department of Homeland Security, which is clearly a white supremacist organization run by neo-Nazis. Donald Trump has seen fit to put all kinds of neo-Nazis, racists, white supremacists, avowed people who have written horrible, divisive, racist things about blacks and brown people in this country. Though, and I guess this addresses what I just talked about, though the Coast Guard is not a part of the Defense Department, the service has been reworking its policies to align with the Trump administration's changing tolerances for hazing and harassment within the U.S. military. In September, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth directed a review and overhaul of these policies, calling the military's existing standards overly broad and saying they jeopardize troops' combat readiness. Yeah, because there's nothing that makes our military more ready to fight in battle, more ready to represent our nation on a battlefield than being able to display swastikas and nooses and symbols of hate and violence and fascism. Symbols that represent a deep-seated hatred, a violent, vitriolic, venomous hatred toward black people and gays and Jews. Yeah. Pete Hegseth, tip of the spear for racism in this country. A Coast Guard official who had seen the new wording called the policy changes chilling. And this, look, before I get to this quote, this gives me, it buoys my spirit a little bit. It gives me a little bit of confidence that there are still people in Donald Trump's military who see things clearly, who understand using a historical lens that this is only dangerous. This quote is really something here. Quote, "We don't deserve the trust of the nation if we're unclear about the divisiveness of swastikas," the official said, speaking on the condition of anonymity because of fear of reprisal. This person fears retribution from the Donald Trump administration if he says, yeah, swastikas are bad. The symbol of fascism is now fashionable again, not under a Biden administration, not under an Obama administration, or Clinton, or even George W. Bush, George H.W. Bush, name one of them. No, Donald Trump, the man who bristles at, you can't call me a fascist. That's political violence language. The guy who demands you not call him a fascist is making acceptable symbols of fascism. Gotcha. 100%. I gotcha. We see you, Donald Trump. America is waking up to who you are. Even Republicans. There are certainly a swath of Republicans that will be outraged by this. People who understand the reasons for our fighting, our participating in World War II to vanquish fascism, to kill on sight fascists on the battlefield. That's what you do with fascists. Historically, that's what we've done with fascists and fascism. Kill it. I invite you to this conversation. Let's have it in the comments below the video. You can also call the voicemail line 714-576-4054. And of course, as always, you can email me daily@dollemore.com. Look, as a veteran of the United States Marine Corps, this sickens me. As a human being who has dedicated his life and occupation to the prospect of social justice, I don't think social justice, being a social justice warrior, if you use social justice as an invective or some kind of an insult or a pejorative, you're a piece of shit or just an ignorant who doesn't understand the aspirational values that are chronicled in our Constitution. Equal justice under the law, equal protection under the law. The 14th Amendment is clear. If you've sworn an oath to the Constitution to protect it against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and you don't recognize that part of that oath is an oath to the 14th Amendment, I don't know what to tell you. Anyway, again, you can comment below, you can call the voicemail line, you can throw me an email. All of these are great ways to communicate with the show. I love and appreciate you very much. I will see you next time. Until then, be genuine, and take care of one another.